Hello again, welcome to Christ Church Cathedral. My name's Paul Bevan and I'm here with David Banney to talk about the second concert in the subscription series of Christ Church Camerata. This one's called Gypsy. It has a featured starred performer whose name is Deborah Humble, and David and I are here to explore who's Deborah, what is Gypsy, and what are we in for on this day. So David, tell us about Deborah Humble.
Look, Deborah Humble is one of Australia's really great musical stars, and for many years she was one of the principal singers in the Hamburg State Opera in Germany, which is really one of the great opera houses of Germany. Simone Young was the director of music for much of that time, and I would say in recent times her career has actually accelerated massively.
She's still very busy.
Oh look, I think she's busier than ever, and she's busier than ever as a major artist. So for example, she's just come back from performing 3 series of the Ring Cycle, principal role there in Victoria.
So does that mean she's a Wagnerian soprano?
Yes, especially she's a mezzo-soprano, and she's got a voice that's really suited to those huge roles, that super dramatic style.
I guess if you are that, she's probably not going to be doing that when she's singing in a more intimate setting in a cathedral with a small ensemble, is she? Do you have to be able to do both?
I think you do to a certain extent to be a real star, and when people hear the music that she's singing in this concert, she's absolutely, it's the right sound for that music. And
we've seen her here at the Newcastle Music Festival a number of times before, because she's local. She lives up the vineyards or somewhere. She lives locally. So we get the opportunity, amazingly, to see this incredible talent. So this is fantastic.
It is, and it's not the first time that we've worked with her, but it's always a delight. And some pieces this time that we haven't done with her before. When
you say we're talking about Christ Church Camerata. So Camerata will be playing string pieces with her, with Deborah singing along. It's singing along, singing as the soloist. It's called Gypsy, which gives, it's written on the tin what we can actually get. So can you explain, what does that mean? What does Gypsy mean in the context of this music?
Yes, and it's a term that obviously relates to the Roumanian people, and they have an extraordinarily rich and long musical tradition. And I guess if you wanted to pick one country that it really especially represents, that would be Hungary. And certainly, if you look at old, say, violin music, anything that has the adjective Hungarian something, think Gypsy. That's sort of a subtext for it. And certainly Hungary is the place where I think in Budapest, I think there are 5 Gypsy music conservatoriums. I performed.
What?
It's incredible.
Well, I suppose if you see this, the instruments and the playing of the instruments is incredibly technically difficult.
Unbelievable.
We're talking hammer dulcimers and things like this?
Yes, and I conducted.
And they can be anything from grand piano size,
which is very interesting, because one of the hallmarks of a lot of Gypsy music and Romani music is that the instruments need to be portable. Because they were on the move, but what you're talking about, the cembalon is the technical name, and it's sort of like a harp lying down, but instead of plucking it, you hit it with these hammers, and it has this beautiful, soft sound. But they weigh a ton, and they're quite big. So I've never.
As long as you can put them on a wagon, I
suppose. But I conducted in Hungary some years ago, and included with the orchestra included some pieces that needed a cembalon player, and the cembalon player that I worked with was a 5th generation cembalon player. So it's a tradition that is absolutely it runs in the family. It's an oral tradition, so songs and music and dances that are passed down not so much by writing them, but by just copying and imitating And so many of the Gypsy players can read music well, but many of them don't read music. They've just learned all of this by ear.
Can you? I know you're only you're literally playing with one hand tied behind your back, but can you give us an idea of what we mean when you hear a Gypsy sound?
Yeah, well, there's a few things that come to mind, and a lot of the most exciting Gypsy music is dances, and often with 2 beats in the bar, so that's what the bass is doing. And if you see a band playing in one of the cafes or pubs in Hungary or in nearby places, you will hear that the bass players non-stop doing this, and then there's some poor guy or lady whose job is...
You're kind of born into being an or a part.
Yeah, exactly,
so
right. And you put it together and over top. Something like that. So
that's one of the Brahms Hungarian dances.
Yes.
There's that word Hungarian, so you immediately think Gypsy. That's probably the most famous, well-known.
Yes, that is. Yeah. And we're also going to do, we're doing that one in the concert. We're also doing another of the Brahms Hungarian dances, which is actually my favourite, and has this beautiful... and so what you hear in all of these dances is this incredibly intense music making. And another interesting aspect is that the Hungarian language in particular has an interesting aspect that every word has the accent on the first syllable. So for example, Kodály, the great Hungarian composer, Zoltán Kodály, Magyar is the Hungarian name for Hungary. And so this produces an interesting thing, which is that if here's the beat, 1, 2, 3, you'll often hear that rhythm, bump, whereas in exactly, yeah. So the iambic pentameter, we think ta-dum, 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 is different. And where we do hear it in our, I guess our Anglo Celtic background actually is in Scottish and Celtic music. So not there. That da-dum, da-dum, bom, is that is very similar to these Hungarian rhythms, and if you look at, in fact, this Sunday we're having Chris Duncan and Catherine Strutt come to play with the Cathedral choir here, and I'm arranging a piece for them to play with the choir, and looking through all these great books of Scottish folk music, and you see very similar rhythms and shapes to the Hungarian music. So,
one of the other main draw cards I'd say you'd put on the program would be Songs My Mother Taught Me.
Yeah.
Dvorak. Can you remind us how that goes?
Yeah.
Just the... Yeah, beautiful. So that's Dvorak.
yes. Probably the biggie that we're doing with Deborah is a set of 7 folk song Spanish songs, which have a very strong Gypsy flavour, by Spanish composer Manuel, who I think is probably fair to say is Spain's most important composer, and a composer of really colourful, brilliant music. And this is certainly one of his most famous.
Because the Romany spread.
Absolutely,
Sure.
Yeah, all the way into Britain, and
You also couldn't have a Gypsy theme without a violin.
absolutely, and very
about portable.
excited to say that we have one of our cadets. So in the Camerata we have a number of young players, high school or university players, who have a training role in the Camerata, but these are outstanding young players, and one of them, Zac Choi, will be making his debut as a soloist with the Camerata.
Okay.
And a piece called Hungarian Concerto,
Right.
and a very, very colourful, brilliant piece.
Okay, David, it'll be great. David Banney is the musical director of Christ Church Camerata. This concert we're talking about, called Gypsy, featuring Deborah Humble and Zac Choi as our soloists, is on the 28th of May at 2:30 in the afternoon here at Christ Church Cathedral. That's a Sunday afternoon.
And more details will be just down.
Indeed, those details.
There.